We have a Baldur's Gate 3 patch number 8, and there are a ton of subclasses that are now going to be included. I thought it'd be really fun for us just to talk about in D&D, what is the inspiration for some of these subclasses. We're not going to get into every single ability or anything like that, but we're going to talk about like what was the vibe of the subclass? What were we trying to capture?
To me, it's exciting that Baldur's Gate 3 is continuing to expand. I mean, my God, what a amazingly rich game, and such a marvelous representation of many of the best parts of 5th edition D&D. So yeah, when we found out they're adding even more, I'm like, really? And like other Baldur's Gate 3 players, I'm like, gimme.
Yeah. Another excuse for another playthrough.
That's right. Oh, dear Lord.
So we have a couple of subclasses here. Starting off with Bard, College of Glamour. That is in the 2024 Player's Handbook.
Absolutely. And for anyone who might not know, all of these subclasses that are being added to Baldur's Gate 3 are playable now in the tabletop game.
Yeah.
And so, right away, College of Glamour, it's in the new Player's Handbook. It's appeared before, but the sort of latest and greatest version of the subclass is in the new Player's Handbook, where you can play this amazingly beguiling bard who is channeling the magic of the Fae and, has a bit of a glam rocker feel, which was captured so spectacularly in the art in the new Player's Handbook. And one of the things that I love about this subclass is you can imagine this bard not only being the sort of pop star that everyone wants to be around, but there could also be a sinister side, because depending on how the character chooses to use that power, that beguiling presence can be used to sway people. And in Baldur's Gate 3, where often people can be swayed to very unexpected ends. I say this having no idea how it will play out in that game, but it will be fun to see.
Another one that is in the Player's Handbook, the 2024 core rulebook, that just got a revision is the Druid Circle of Stars.
Yes, I love this subclass. When we first created this subclass and then decided to bring it forward into the new Player's Handbook, one of our goals was to create a Druid option that leaned less on the wild shape shtick of turning into animals and more into spellcasting and gazing up at the stars and having this luminous quality that is tapping into a very important part of nature, which is the sky. And so again, another one I'm so glad to see moving into Baldur's Gate 3. It will be interesting to see how they visualize the constellations that appear on your body as a Circle of Stars druid, because for anyone who hasn't played one, you have the option of, when you use wild shape, rather than turning into an animal, of instead channeling the power of certain constellations that give you different magical abilities.
We also have the Ranger Swarmkeeper, which I've always loved, because that can go either very Snow White or very dark.
Yes.
Or Dishonored Rat Plague.
Yeah, and so if anyone wants to not only try out the Swarmkeeper in Baldur's Gate 3, but also if you want to try it in the tabletop game, you can find the Swarmkeeper in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And the Swarmkeeper is a great example of how we often try to explore the different aesthetic extremes that D&D includes in its very broad tent. Because going all the way back to 1st edition, D&D has been home both to whimsy and gothic horror, to hardcore, sort of medievalist tactics and quasi-medieval nods, to history, while also having science fiction things. So D&D has always been this very broad aesthetic territory. And as you pointed out, the Swarmkeeper is a ranger, and you decide the nature of your swarm that maybe has a flock of robins or squirrels that are with you, or centipedes
Yeah.
or other kind of vermin. And you can use this swarm in a variety of ways as you go about your rangerly work.
We've got the Monk Drunken Master. There's a very unique monk that can take advantage of all the wine that is in Baldur's Gate.
So the Drunken Master, if you'd like to play it in the tabletop game, is in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The subclasses in that book are still usable with not only the classes in the 2014 Player's Handbook, if you're continuing to use it, but also usable with the revised classes in the 2024 Player's Handbook. And absolutely, the Drunken Master leans into that martial arts trope of whether actually drinking an inebriating substance or just sort of pretending to, this monk taps into the spirit of sort of an inebriated mindset to power up their abilities. And it will be interesting to see in Baldur's Gate 3, because again, full disclosure to people who are watching this video, we have not played it yet. So it will be interesting to see, like, can you pick up the stuff and drink it, and will it affect you?
I know that you can. And I know like one alteration, at least in the testing of it, you can also like apply kind of a drunken condition to someone else if you hit them. So
got it.
But yeah, I think it was that. I think that one in particular because there's an obscene amount of wine that exists in Baldur's Gate that somehow has not been destroyed. It's somehow impervious to fireball. It is. I'm not surprised that there's a little bit more of a tie-in.
Now, I appreciate, as a person who loves studying the history of not only the Middle Ages, but also of the ancient world, I appreciated in Baldur's Gate 3 of how much wine is there.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people don't know is that in the real world, often those alcoholic beverages was one of the only ways to really ensure you were drinking something that was cleaner than the water you might be pulling out of a river downstream from that village, and who knows what they're dumping in there. And also a lot of alcoholic beverages back then tended to have lower alcohol content than the alcoholic beverages we drink today. So it was alcohol-ish by our current standards.
We have the Rogue Swashbuckler. This showed up in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This is, very much that Errol Flynn, old-timey, kind of like, swinging from the rafters type of rogue.
Absolutely. This has been a very popular subclass in the game for all these years that it's been with us. It is really about playing that duelist rogue where you are especially great at cornering a foe off, to the side on your own, which is nice because the baseline rogue, of course, often wants one of their buddies to be near the creature that they're fighting, because that's one way for them to easily get their sneak attack off, whereas the swashbuckler is designed to fight that foe over there, or to be more precise an example, if anyone is a fan of the Errol Flynn Robin Hood, to be up that curving staircase, dueling with your one foe very dramatically.
Or the over-the-top scenes between ships, from Pirates of the Caribbean, like where they're swinging from ship to ship, and that kind of like these weird moments go on and on and on. These set pieces, yeah, for sure.
Always marvelous.
Barbarian Path of the Giants, one that I do love, and I know for a fact you'll be throwing some folks around the map.
So you have tried some of these.
I wasn't in the stress test, but I've been observing.
Oh, nice.
I've been observing.
Nice. So the Path of the Giants, this was pretty recently released in our book, Big B Presents Glory of the Giants. And so anyone who wants to play this subclass, you can get it now in that book. And yeah, this is the name. What the subclass does is on the tin.
Yeah,
it's the barbarian who gets to be giant, because you eventually will be able to increase in size, be really great at tossing things around, which I know is something most barbarians enjoy,
including like a long sword, like a great sword.
Oh yes, anything.
Yeah.
I have, of course, in Acquisitions Incorporated, often DM'd for a barbarian with Bobby Zimmerowski, and one of his favorite things to throw is other people.
Yeah. Well, how can you not? And this felt very, from what I've observed, very, very much has captured like the elemental nature of each of these giants as well.
Yeah.
So it's very cool. We have the Paladin Oath of the Crown. This is from the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide.
Yeah, that's a deep cut.
Yeah.
Because, this is a subclass that hasn't been in print since Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. But again, still usable with the current rules. And a really interesting paladin, because this is a paladin who has sworn an oath not to some of the loftier concepts that some of our other paladins swear their oaths to,
Right.
but to a particular sovereign or a particular nation. And it is from that they harness their divine power.
We have the Fighter Arcane Archer, which is the trick arrow subclass, really, right?
Well, it is such a fun subclass, especially for anyone who really wants not only to do trick shots as a fighter, but if anyone really wants to have sort of a Legolas feeling, but amped up with some magic, or if anyone's really trying to channel the old feel of the elf fighter magic user in the ye old days of the game, the Arcane Archer is a lot of fun. If those are the fantasies or similar character fantasies you're going for.
Yeah.
And for that, if someone is looking for it, they can find it in Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
And that one in particular, like I've already seen, I've seen Darkness get used. I've seen Banishment get used. And there's a very fun mechanic, demonstration of how curving shot works. And also when you miss a target and be able to hit another target. Be able to shoot around corners, now you get to visualize it.
Yeah.
Shadow Magic Sorcerer. This is a sorcerer who has kind of become infused with the Shadowfell and is or dark creatures.
This is another subclass from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And it is perfect for anyone who wants to play a sorcerer, but maybe with a little bit of warlock aesthetic.
Yeah.
Because this is the sorcerer literally not only in the shadows, but who pours shadow forth, who weaves the shadows, who has this powerful connection to the Shadowfell, which is not only a plane of, again, it's on the tin, shadow, but a lot of people don't realize that the Shadowfell is where Ravenloft is. And so this is the sorcerer tapping into the same shadowy powers that are behind the realm of Barovia and the other places in the domains of dread that are locking in those dread lords.
Yeah, this is very much Hello Darkness, my old friend. You and the Darkness spell are best friends.
Yes.
Yeah. We have the Warlock Hexblade. That is coming from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And there's also some core elements that are in the 2024 Player's Handbook.
Yeah, so if you want to go all in on the Hexblade, Xanathar's Guide is still the best place to go for that. But the Hexblade did inspire some of the Eldritch Invocations in the new Player's Handbook, because we realized that the Hexblade was really pointing at the fact that a number of people, regardless of the patron they chose, want to have that feeling of being both a warrior and a magic user. The Hexblade subclass lets you just go all in on that concept, where your patron is itself this mysterious sentient weapon, or the creator of such weapons. And that's for the player and the dungeon master to figure out of who or what is this mysterious entity that is providing this magic-using warrior their dread power.
We have the Blade Singer Wizard.
Yes.
And we're actually taking a glance at that in the UA currently, but that's in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide as well.
And also in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Right.
So yeah, currently the most recent version that people can play with is in Tasha's Cauldron. But as people have seen in Unearthed Arcana, we are working on a updated version with some enhancements. So if all goes well with that, people can expect to see an enhanced version of the Bladesinger in the new Forgotten Realms Player's Guide.
But if you already like the idea of the Eldritch Knight fighter, who is a fighter with a little bit of magic, with Arcane Archer is kind of the same thing, but this is a wizard with a little bit of sword.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the wizard's answer to the fighter's Eldritch Knight.
Right.
And the Bladesinger has a nice story in D&D. It's connected to elven culture, but for a number of years now, we've presented that in the multiverse, this tradition has been shared also with non-elves, and it is this tradition that not only blends weapon use with magic, but does so with dance. There's this beauty to it, largely because of its elven roots.
Now, the Cleric Death Domain does appear in Baldur's Gate 3 in this patch notes, and we certainly have the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, but we've got the Grave Domain. If you're looking for that death flavor, the Grave Domain is really juicy because you could play it a couple of different ways, but you are kind of deciding on the battlefield who maybe is going to expire.
And yeah, I think the best place to go to get this flavor for your cleric is the Grave Domain and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. That said, if someone has the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, they can find the other version of that domain called the Death Domain. But I think the Grave Domain version, since we specifically tune that up for wider use in the tabletop game, I think that's the best place to go to be that cleric who serves the forces of death in the cosmos.
Yeah, and to create effect in combat.
Yeah.
I've dipped into Grave Domain Cleric for a lot of reasons. So yeah, it is a deeply fun subclass. Well, those are the subclasses that are all showing up. I'm not going to ask you which is your favorite because that's cheating and they're all your children. But yeah, I'm excited to try some of these out and see how they get visualized in a video game format.
Yeah,
that's gotta be weird for you as well to see these subclasses just like pop up again.
I love it. I mean, when I play Baldur's Gate 3, it is wonderful. Just because it's such a fabulous game, but I also, because I love just playing and DMing D&D so much, it then gives me a dose of D&D that I can play by myself. But then it's
You're
also...
not forever DM.
No. But it's also, I just love seeing their take on different things in the game. And to see how in some cases they'll implement something exactly the way it is in our game. And then in other places they've gone in a different direction because the new direction serves the video game environment better, and I just am delighted by all of it. So when I'm playing, I have this mixed mindset of I'm just a fan playing it while at the same time kind of studying every choice they made on, the place where it's exactly the way it is in the book versus they went in a whole other direction and, ooh, that direction is neat. Yeah. And I love experiencing all of it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.